Everyone knows the government hides information. But what if there are things they fear just as much as we do? What if they don't control everything, but are simply trying to keep something from getting out? I was just an ordinary guy. I wasn't some conspiracy theorist. I didn't believe in aliens, secret bunkers, or deep state cover-ups. I was a systems analyst for a tech security firm. Just another nameless employee buried in an office cubicle. That's why when I got the email, I assumed it was spam. It had no sender, no subject line, just a single message. Room 341B. It doesn't exist, but you will find it. If you go there, do not look in the mirror. There was no reply button, no way to trace the IP. The email had just appeared in my inbox, as if it had always been there. I wanted to delete it, but my finger hovered over the button. Something about it felt wrong. Then I saw the attachment. A single government document. A blueprint of a classified building, a place I actually recognized. I stared at the blueprint for a long time. It was a layout of a government facility in Washington, D.C., one I had actually visited a few years back for a cybersecurity contract. But something stood out immediately. There was a basement floor that wasn't on any public record. I checked everywhere, official floor plans, construction permits, even online leak forums. But there was no trace of this hidden level. And right there, in the middle of the diagram, room 341B, a room with no doors, no ventilación, no wiring leading into it, just a sealed-off square in the middle of the building. I felt a slow, creeping unease crawl up my spine. I shouldn't have kept digging, but I did. I found a name. Someone who used to work in that building, a former contractor for a private security firm. I called him. The line rang once, twice. Then, who is this? The voice was low, tense. I took a breath. I'm trying to find information about a room. Room 341B. Silence. Then, in a whisper, he said, they all thought the room was just sealed off. But the truth is, it chooses new people. The phone went dead. I checked the number, disconnected. I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at my dark computer screen. A normal person would have stopped, closed the laptop, gone to bed. But I was no longer a normal person. I had seen the blueprint. I had heard the warning. And now, it wasn't just a mystery. It was a question I needed answered. So I made the decision. Tomorrow night, I would break into the building, and I would find room 341B. Getting inside the building was easier than I expected. It was a government office, but nothing high security, just a nondescript concrete structure with dull windows and an outdated keycard system. I had done contract work here before, fixing network vulnerabilities. I still had my old ID badge. No one had deactivated it. It was almost like I was meant to come back. I walked through the lobby, past the tired-looking security guard half watching a monitor. I knew the layout by heart. Main floors, conference rooms, the usual bureaucratic maze. But the basement was different. There were no elevators leading to it. No stairwell signs. And yet, I found the door. It was tucked at the end of a dimly lit hallway, half hidden behind an old vending machine. The kind of thing no one would ever think to move, except someone had moved it for me. The vending machine had been pushed just far enough to reveal a rusted metal handle on the wall. A hatch. I hesitated. It was locked with an electronic keypad. But then, my badge beeped. The lock clicked open, like it had been waiting. I pulled the hatch open and stepped inside. The air changed immediately. The moment the door closed behind me, the temperature dropped. It was silent down here. Not normal silence. A vacuum, like sound was being swallowed. The concrete walls were cracked, lined with old pipes dripping condensation. A single flickering light stretched shadows across the floor. And at the very end of the hall, a door that shouldn't exist. Room 341B. It looked old, but not abandoned. A heavy steel door, reinforced with bolts. A small, rectangular window near the top. Someone had tried to paint over the number, but I could still see it beneath the peeling white strokes. 341B. I stepped forward. The moment my fingers touched the handle, the hallway lights went out. I didn't move. My breath hitched, heart pounding in my ears. The darkness felt wrong, like it was watching me. I should have turned back, but my hand moved on its own. I twisted the handle and pushed the door open. The room was not what I expected. It wasn't abandoned. It wasn't a storage room. It was a surveillance room. A long metal desk sat against the far wall, covered in dusty monitors. The screens flickered with grainy black and white footage of hallways, stairwells, and office spaces. Hundreds of classified folders were stacked on rusted shelves. And in the center of the desk, a single tape recorder, still running. I stepped forward, staring at the cassette inside. The tape was spinning. Someone had just played it. And then, a voice crackled through the speakers. A voice that sounded like mine. "If you're here, they already know about you. Get out now or..." Static. The monitors glitched violently. Then, every screen changed. They were no longer showing random hallways. They were all showing me, standing right where I was. But in the monitors, I wasn't alone. I spun around. The room was empty. But on the desk, something new had appeared. A cassette tape. The label was written in shaky black ink. "You didn't choose the room. The room chose you." I stared at it, the words burning into my mind. Then, somewhere outside the room, footsteps, getting closer. The footsteps outside the room were slow, deliberate. I held my breath. The monitors still showed me standing in the surveillance room, but now, there were shadows behind me, moving. I spun around. Nothing. Just the desk, the monitors, the endless rows of classified files stacked against the walls. But I wasn't stupid. Something was here. The cassette tape sat in front of me, its label burning into my mind. "You didn't choose the room. The room chose you." I grabbed it. I didn't know why. Maybe instinct. Maybe fear. Maybe because I knew, deep down, that once I walked out of this room, I wouldn't be the same. I shoved the tape into my pocket. Then the phone rang. A deep, shrill buzzing filled the room. I turned toward the desk, heart hammering. An old, black rotary phone sat there. I hadn't noticed it before. It rang again, and against every ounce of logic, I reached for it. I lifted the receiver to my ear. Silence. Then, a voice. My voice. "You made a mistake. They are coming." Click. The call ended. And outside the room, the footsteps stopped. The lights flickered violently. I backed away from the desk, my mind racing. On the monitors, I saw hallway cameras blinking in and out, static swallowing parts of the footage. Then, the dark figures appeared. At first, just shadows, standing in the distance. But with every flicker, they moved closer. Their heads tilted unnaturally, their limbs too long, their faces featureless. I watched, horrified, as they reached the door to 341B, the same door I needed to escape through. Then, every monitor turned to black, except for one. The camera inside this room flickered back on. And on the screen, I was not alone anymore. I could feel it before I turned around. A cold breath on the back of my neck. The overwhelming feeling of something behind me. I slowly turned my head and saw my reflection in the dusty, shattered mirror above the desk. Only, it wasn't my reflection. Not really. The other me smiled, but I wasn't smiling. Then, its eyes turned black, and so did mine. I stumbled back, gasping. The mirror cracked further, deep fractures splitting across the surface. The door to room 341B slammed open. The hallway beyond was wrong. No longer the government basement. No longer anything human. The walls shifted, stretching into endless black corridors. And from that darkness, they were waiting for me. All of them, standing motionless, grinning, reflections of me, but not me. Their eyes were nothing but deep, hollow pits, and they all took a step forward. The building's alarm suddenly blared to life, a shrieking metallic sound that shook the floor beneath me. The figures in the hallway didn't flinch, but I ran. I didn't know where. I didn't care. I tore through the open door, past the shadows, past the endless reflections of myself, and straight into nothing. The hallway swallowed me whole. Everything went black. I woke up in my apartment. At least I thought I did. The sheets were familiar. The morning light filtered through the blinds in that same golden haze. The air smelled of coffee, like I had just made some. For a second, I almost believed it, that it had all been a nightmare. That room 341B had been a hallucination. That the figures, the mirror, The other versions of me were just my mind playing tricks. Then I sat up, and I saw my phone. It was already unlocked. A single new email waited on the screen. No sender. No subject line. Just a message. You are now part of the room. My breath caught in my throat. I felt it before I even looked. Something was wrong. I turned my head slowly. My heart slammed against my ribs. The mirror. It hung on my bedroom wall just like always, but the reflection was wrong. It wasn't delayed like before. No. Now, my reflection was doing something else entirely. I lifted my hand. The reflection didn't move. I blinked. It didn't blink back. It just stared, eyes dark, face too still. Then, it smiled. I didn't. I couldn't breathe. I stepped forward. My reflection stayed where it was. Then, its hand lifted, and it pointed behind me. I froze. A deep, cold terror spread through my bones. I didn't want to turn. I didn't want to see what was standing there. But I did. I had to. I turned my head and saw nothing. Just my empty room. Then, a vibration. My phone. A new email. Don't turn around again. My stomach twisted into knots. My hands shook. I felt it again, the presence. Something standing just behind me. I squeezed my eyes shut. My breathing hitched. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I knew deep down, there was nowhere left to go. I was never supposed to leave the room, because the truth was sinking in now. I hadn't escaped room 341B. I had brought it with me. Or worse, I had never left at all. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My entire body was locked in place. My muscles coiled so tight they ached. The air in my apartment had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. Something was here. And I knew that if I turned around again, I wouldn't like what I saw. But I couldn't stay like this forever. So I did the only thing I could. I lifted my phone, hands shaking, and looked back at the mirror through the screen. And that's when I saw it. It was still me, but not me. A reflection stuck in place, staring. Its head was tilted slightly like a broken puppet. Its grin too wide, too stretched. And its eyes, black, hollow, empty. The reflection lifted its hand again and pointed down. I followed its gesture, my stomach twisting, and that's when I saw my feet, standing in a puddle of ink-black liquid. It spread outward slowly, like a shadow bleeding from my body, like something was pulling me back. I tried to move, but I couldn't. I looked back at the mirror. The other me took a step forward. I didn't. My reflection was leaving the glass, and I was the one being pulled inside. My phone vibrated one last time. I barely managed to flick my eyes to the screen. A final message. You didn't escape the room. The room escaped with you. The lights flickered. The world warped. And then, I wasn't there anymore. The next morning, my apartment was quiet. The bed was neatly made. The phone lay face up on the nightstand. The mirror stood still, no cracks, no distortions. Everything was perfectly normal, except for one thing. In the reflection of the mirror, I was still standing there, eyes black, mouth frozen in a silent, endless scream. Somewhere, a new email was being sent, a new recipient, a new target. And when they opened it, room 341, B would choose again.